Thank you to everybody for coming. My name is Bob Lindsay, and I'm the CEO of Friends of Recovery New York, and really want to thank you for taking the time to join us. Plain and simple, if you speak with anyone who has a family member who has suffered with addiction to alcohol or drugs, or anyone in recovery from addiction, far too many of them will tell you the story about how the medical community failed to diagnose, refer, or to treat the addiction. In fact, in too many cases, they will tell you that the addiction started with the prescription from a physician. Remarkably, most physicians receive little or no training in addiction. It is long overdue that New York State take the lead and make sure that every physician in the state of New York receives training in this issue. We are here today representing individuals and families from across New York State, from Buffalo to Syracuse to Long Island to Saranac Lake to the Hudson Valley, to talk with the members of the legislature and impress upon them the urgent need to pass Assembly Bill 355, Senate 4348, which will require physicians to get 3 hours of continuing medical education in addiction, pain management, and palliative care. Plain and simple, we are here as the voice of so many who are not here. And the reality is that physicians play a critically important role, and we need their help, we need their support, we need their investment in care. And the reality is this bill is all about that. We have a number of people that are going to speak. We've asked people to speak very briefly, and we're anxious to take whatever questions people may have. So our first speaker today is going to be Bob Ross. Bob is the CEO of St. Joseph's Rehab Center up in Saranac Lake, and he is the board chair of the New York State Association of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse Providers. Bob Ross.
Thank you, Bob. I'd like to express my appreciation for all the families who are here and for why they're here. There are very few things legislatively that are simple, but this is really simple. What we're asking for is that the medical community devote 3 hours every other year in their CMEs, part of the 50 hours, it's not an addition that they have to do anyway, to get more education and more information so they can serve families throughout New York State more accurately with the information that we now know is so important. And we're asking that for the physicians to become part of the solution in doing that. It's a very small request, and we think it absolutely ought to be an easy one to fulfill. And as Bob said, we're asking that this Assembly bill be passed and asking all of you here today and the media to help us put some pressure on the Assembly to have this come up for a vote and in a favorable way. So I think it's a very simple task, but a very important one because lives are at stake. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Our next speaker is Ira Costell. He is a family advocate, and he is representing families in supportive treatment known as FIST. Ira?
Thank you, Bob. My name is Ira Costell. I'm from Port Jefferson Station on Long Island in New York. I am here representing an organization known as FIST, Families in Supportive Treatment. I'm a volunteer. I'm a family member, just like all the people you see behind me. I lost a loved one to this disease 8 years ago, my nephew David Costell, and I've been an advocate ever since. FIST is a group that has come together. It's a coalition of family members who have loved ones who are struggling with addictions presently or sadly have lost their lives to this most outrageous epidemic that we're experiencing nationally. It's also a coalition that involves treatment providers and professionals that have come together to try to carry the message, and FIST would like it to be known. First of all, it's irrefutable that in this country we are awash in prescriptions for opioids. 80% of the world's consumption of opioids happens in the United States of America. There's statistics that show that every man, woman, and child could be given an opioid around the clock for 30 days around this country for the prescriptions that are written every year. It's a lot of opioids that are out there. And the unrefutable facts are that this has led to people going to street drugs and ultimately losing their lives either to opioids. The sad reality is that on a daily basis, a family wakes up on Long Island and has lost a loved one to this disease. We have 350 plus deaths from opioids and heroin overdose yearly. Every day, our club, is one of my compatriots reference, is growing. So whether it's from Albany to Amagansett or Buffalo to the Bronx, this is a problem facing us all. And FIST wants to see this bill passed. It's a very simple, prudent, reasonable request. And I'll just finish with this. I think the broader medical community really understands that this is a reasonable thing. If they're writing a prescription that could harm somebody and cost them their lives, they have a responsibility to learn what it is that they're doing and truly understand it. You know, it's oftentimes said that, and some of us up here understand it all too well, one pair of eyes must close so 1,000 more may be opened. And I'm praying that the Assembly and the leadership and the governor open their eyes to this and continue to fight this fight and pass this legislation today as soon as possible. Lives depend on it.
Just to back up very quickly on Ira's comment, 259 million prescriptions for painkillers are written every year in this country. 46 people a day die from prescription drug overdoses alone. So our next speaker is Avi Israel. Avi is the founder of an organization called Save the Michaels of the World from Buffalo, New York. Avi.
They work for us. They don't work for physicians. They don't work for pharmaceutical companies. They do not work for special interests. They work for us. They need to remember that, and they need to remember the faces of all the children and everyone that's been lost to this disease, and they had better do the right vote. If doctors think that 3 hours every 2 years is punitive, then I dare them to put themselves in any one of our shoes and live what we live every single day without the loved one that we have lost and buried. So do the right thing. We're not going away. And come election time, you think that your contributors are going to do the right thing for you? Well, you have to convince the voters. And we will make it our life's mission to make sure you don't get voted in again to condemn our kids. And we're losing a generation of children, and it's unacceptable. Thank you.
So just a couple of very quick comments, and then we'll open it for questions. The first one I want to just mention, and I didn't in my opening remarks, I have 11 family members living in recovery from addiction to alcohol and other drugs. You know, the reality is that recovery can happen, but only when we treat it appropriately and effectively, and as you've heard here today, so frequently and too frequently we do not. The other one, again, is that I want to also recognize Susan Solomon. Susan's here from Drug Crisis in our backyard. I didn't mention that earlier. Thank you, Susan, and the folks who came with you from the Hudson Valley. The other one is I also want to mention that we anticipate that the governor is going to be introducing similar legislation on this bill about educating physicians. In fact, it may require more hours, up to 4 hours. So that clearly we have the governor's support and leadership on this issue. We're very grateful for that. But today, plain and simple, we're here to say to the Assembly and to the Senate, pass A355 and Senate 4346. So at this point, I want to open up to any questions that anybody may have.
Has it passed both? I mean, has it passed the Senate? It was in debate yesterday. It was in debate yesterday, on the Senate floor, and it's going to pass. It's going to pass to say it passed last year at a vote of 59 to nothing. The holdup is the Assembly, and believe it or not, we have convinced all 42 Republicans to join us. What we have is several influential old-timers who have decided to listen to Misny. We have people like Robin Schiminger, Levine, Deborah Glick, Schimmel. These are people who basically have been here for a long time and they get their funding from the medical community, whether it's doctor, pharmaceutical, what have you, and they got the ear of the speaker.
So the answer to the question is that at this point, anticipate passage in the Senate. Today, our real focus is to move to Assembly and to put it on the floor for a vote.
And in the Assembly, is it in committee?
It's already aged. It's already ready. It's on third reading and ready for vote.
It's passed committee in February. You know, it's been sitting on the floor, and Misny has been targeting this bill since February, and they know that in the Senate it'll pass. Our bill will pass with no problem.
Right, and in case anyone doesn't know, MSNY in English means the Medical Society of the State of New York. Sorry, we all speak in acronyms. Yeah. Any other questions, comments? Very good. We really thank you again for your time and your attendance today. And again, help us go to legislators, talk about how important this bill is, get their support, and let's get this bill passed.
What I would just make one comment, and I would like every reporter to really ask the people who are objecting to the bill is why. Just tell me why. Why are you objecting to education? If you speak to anybody in any profession, they all have to do continuous education. As an electrician, I did 10 hours every 3 years, and there was no ifs or buts about it. You either did that or you didn't get your license. You know, I understand that doctors have to do 50 hours every year, but this is what's great about this bill. There's an opt-out. There's an opt-out section of this bill, because if you don't prescribe, you can opt out. You don't have to take the course. And what you can do, this 3 hours every year is not an addition on the 50 hours. You can replace something that you're not using and use the 3 hours to do it. So it's really not, you know, we're not adding 3 hours. We're not making it 53 hours. It's strictly 50 hours. You can replace whatever it is that you want that's not, you're not using in your practice.
Very good. And again, I want to just say thank you to all the families who traveled to share your story with the people in this building. I know how difficult that is, having lost friends and family to addiction as well. But that is an incredible gift that you can share, and really appreciate you taking the time to be here today. So,
thank you.
Thank you.